Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen, and today I'm thrilled to welcome the director and writer of the new movie, Ethan Bloom. Please help me welcome Herschel Faber and Maylen Dominguez. Herschel and Maylen, thanks so much for joining me today.
Our pleasure to be here.
Well, we have a lot to cover, but every time I have someone on, I always like to start by going back first. Herschel, I'll start with you. Where did you grow up, and what was your family life like, in particular with regard to Judaism?
I grew up in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, which is just south of Daytona Beach. We were the only Jewish family in town at the time. I had to drive 45 minutes to Ormond Beach to go to the local temple. Shout out to Temple Bethel, which is still there, where I attended Hebrew school. I was confirmed, years and years and years of my life. A very special place for me. Interestingly, my mom was Lutheran, and she converted to Judaism before I was born, because she married my dad, who was Jewish. We're the South Beach Jews. My whole family is from, I always say that in quotes, but we're from Miami Beach. My dad went to Beach High. My aunts, uncles, cousins. My dad went to the Hebrew Academy on the beach. So I spent the greater part of my childhood spending months on end, visiting family, spending summers in Miami, all around Miami, not just Miami Beach, but also Coconut Grove, where a lot of the film is shot. I spent a lot of time there as well. And so, my Judaism, it's interesting. There was a duality to it because I grew up in a town, as I said before, where we were the only Jewish family. And so I was exposed and inundated with all things Judaism and take it very seriously. But I had this other part of my life, which was all my friends who were Christian or Catholic or this or that. And so they would invite me over for, Easter or for Christmas dinner or things like that. And on my mom's side, the Lutheran side, they continued obviously celebrating Christian holidays. Right. So, there was that part as well. And I always kind of felt a little bit left out, which allowed me to really connect with Ethan Bloom, the character, because that has a lot to do with the story.
Right. And I'm going to get, I have similar, I know you can't tell from the accent, I'm from New York originally, but I spent a good deal of my teens in Florida, and I was one of the only four Jews in my high school at the time. So, Maylen, I really...
So you know the feeling.
No, absolutely. So, Maylen, I was reading that you converted to Judaism?
Yeah, so for me, I grew up in, like all over Central Florida, Maitland, Florida, Longwood, and Winter Park. And growing up in Maitland, Florida, there were lots of Jewish people, and that was my my actual community. I had a lot of friends that were Jewish because my parents were one of the only Latino families in Central Florida at that time, and their best friends were all Peruvian and Chilean Jews because my father was a doctor, and so they were friends. They were doctor friends. So as a result of that, I kind of had the opposite experience from Herschel, which is that my mom sent me to the JCC. Okay. As a kid, I would come home and, I would, want to do Shabbat and celebrate Hanukkah and that kind of thing. But I was raised Catholic. And then as I got older, met my husband, and I was always really interested in spirituality, just all different kinds of spirituality, and studied it, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity. Sure. And then when I met my husband and he was Jewish, he did not want me to convert at all. He had grown up very Jewish and had in Brooklyn and had felt like that it was a little bit too intense for him. But his father was a Holocaust survivor and his mother was the daughter of a rabbi. And so it was important for them that I convert. And I at the time I was like, you know what? I mean, I love spirituality. I love religion. Obviously, I loved Shabbat when I was growing up. Let me study Judaism. And so I took a class at the University of Judaism in Los Angeles through a conservative temple, Kehilat Marav, and Rabbi Gottlieb, who I love. And my husband took the class as well. And we just he fell in love with Judaism. And I think I fell in love with Judaism. And so I ended up converting and had a Beit Din, mikvah, the whole thing. And now we're Jewish. My daughter's Jewish. She keeps kosher style, so she's Yeah, she's all in. Yeah.
And by the way, a Brooklyn boy here. So
Yeah.
also, so
Nice.
okay. So how did the two of you meet?
So I was working. I had moved to Miami to help them start the New York Film Academy in Miami. I
Mhm.
started off as the chair of the film department, and then I got promoted to be the dean of the New York Film Academy in Miami. And when I got promoted, I ended up hiring Herschel. Well, actually, before that, I had hired Herschel to be a faculty member, but then I promoted him to be the chair of the film department. Yeah, he just sent me his resume, and I was really impressed. And we met, and we got along really well. And so we worked together. We were colleagues. And when I wrote this film, Ethan Bloom, he was one of the first people that I had read it to give me his opinion, and he told me he loved it and he wanted to direct it. So that's how we
Oh,
that's how
fantastic.
we met.
So what inspired the initial idea for Ethan Bloom? I read that it evolved from pages that you forgot in a thumb drive somewhere. Is that true?
Yeah. I had written the first 15 pages years before. I had my daughter and had handed her the thumb drive. She had used it for her school projects. And then after we moved to Miami, I don't know, it was just weird. One night she came over, she's like, Mom, there's something on this thumb drive that you might want. I put it in the computer and there were these pages. And I was like, you know what? I really love this character. I like the script. I think this is cute. And so I started developing it. At the time, originally, it was set in New York City. But because I had been living in Miami, I was like, you know what? Miami's the perfect place for this because such a strong Latino community, such a strong Jewish community. And I had just been living for a year in Coconut Grove. And I don't know, I was just kind of enamored by that whole, I just thought it would be another really interesting character for the script. And so I wrote it there. And then Herschel also has a connection to Coconut Grove. So we both were in line with kind of wanting to create something that was like an homage to like kind of old 80s films and to Coconut Grove and to like what Miami had used to be. And that's what happened.
I'm going to ask about South Florida in a second, the connection. But Herschel, I read that you've mentioned developing Ethan Bloom for like 6 years together with it. So what drew you to the story initially?
You know, it was, it was Ethan's search for a way to deal with his grief. I connected with that, the emotions of that. I also connected with his quest to find a deeper understanding about his spirituality, to make sense of religion in general. I've always sort of been on that quest. And, what really drew me to the project was the writing. I mean, it's so rare. I used to read when I lived in Hollywood. I was a reader when I started out for some of the big agencies and studios. And it would be rare for me to have like an emotional or visceral reaction to something that I read. But when I read Maylen's script, I found myself in tears and I found myself laughing. And I just knew that I had a lot in common with this character. And I really just, sort of engaged with the voice of who this kid was. And so that started the process. And then, getting into the weeds of how it got made, Malina and I went out. We had some students help us shoot a quick sizzle reel as a proof of concept for the movie. And then we had some interest from various producers, but COVID happened and that set us back. So I'm including COVID in that 6-year analysis. And we were down for about 2 years there, maybe a little bit longer. And we came out of COVID and I had sent it to a friend of mine who is a well-known showrunner and writer in Los Angeles, and he and his partner fell in love with the project. So we started developing the script even more with them. And then they wanted to take it to Netflix where they had a deal, but Netflix had five bar mitzvah movies in development, as they always do. I think that's a thing for Netflix.
I think I've seen most
5.
of them. Okay.
Yes, 5 at any one given time.
Right. Okay.
So they wouldn't even read the script, and that was enough for Malina and I to sort of say, okay, let's just make this movie on our own. And we started the process of raising money, good old independent style, and we made the movie. Here we are.
I'm going to ask you about the making of this, but let's go back to the South Florida connection. You both have the South Florida connection, and you just mentioned it as well. Did changing the setting from New York to South Florida like influence the tone of the film a little bit also?
I mean, I'm sure it did for sure. But I feel like what it did is the richness of the life here really inspired me to finish the script. I mean, because, I had started it. And I think being here, I was able to like tap into some more specific things that I loved, just like AC's Ices was in there because, I used to go there with my daughter and, all these other little places. And I think that also it's just, I mean, for me, my creativity really blossomed living here in Miami because I find the people here super interesting everywhere. I mean, you're walking the dog and there's somebody who has like some weird cat that's mixed with some little mini tiger that they got. I mean, I don't know. It's just weird stuff. Everywhere you go, it's weird stuff and like fascinating stuff. And I just go home and I'm like, wow. So for me, it was just an inspiring place, and I also love it. I love it. Like I love the mixture, the diversity, the mixture of cultures. I love that it rains suddenly and then it's sunny, and I love the vegetation, and I just think it's a special place.
So,
and not just to add on to that, the setting, Miami, South Florida, is a character in the movie, and that was important for me to establish, and I think for us both to establish the idea that this place is changing before our eyes, and let's commemorate what's there and what's left of the magic. I'm not saying it's not going to be the Magic City anymore, but a lot of the old haunts that I used to frequent as a kid, particularly in the Grove and on the beach, they're going the way of the dinosaur. So it's nice they say film is forever. It's nice to have some of that, documented.
So you also talked about that the film explores a lot of different, emotions. It's, and from what I read, loss, grief, parental expectations. So how difficult is it to balance humor with some of the more emotional and dramatic moments?
The way these projects work, and people always say this, but I hadn't experienced it until Herschel and I started working together. It's when the people that are involved have like kind of synergistic connections to the material. Like when Herschel read it, he felt like it was very, he's like, I am Ethan Bloom, and at the same time, the same kind of love for Coconut Grove that I had. We both grew up in Central Florida, and we both really liked movies that were about things that made you laugh and made you cry. And so I feel like when you have when the energy of the script and the energy of the director, and of course both of us are producers, and then the actors have the same kind of connection in that way. When you have everybody involved that has that connection, it really kind of comes to life in that way. And I think it's like, I love that. I think to me, it's just the most human thing in the world. I mean, that's who I mean, everybody who knows me knows this about me. I cry very easily. Actually, I found out Herschel does too. I cry very easily and laugh very easily. And I think that there's something really human and awesome about like being able to like kind of cry and laugh and like just be in the moment of experiencing things. And so that was something that I think we wanted to create in this film for the audiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's the hardest thing to do is to make someone laugh and make them cry. In a film, and for those of your viewers who haven't seen the film, they need to go out because it becomes this really communal experience. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that in Ethan's darkest moments, he's able to find a moment of laughter, or something that gives the audience a moment to let some of the pressure out. And that's the very definition of comedy, making light of heavy situations. That's not to say we're diminishing the seriousness of these, but we are finding the humor at times.
Isn't that a very Jewish trait anyway, to find the humor in all these darkest moments? Yes,
exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Exactly. And to give space for that, because I mean, I think that sometimes we think like the only way to make something meaningful is if it's very, very, very heavy, and we think that you can make something that's meaningful that is looking at some deep issues, but also giving us a chance to like laugh and be playful with it as well. So that was part of why we did it this way.
So let me ask about the cast, because you just mentioned you have look at some of the names you have. You have, Josh Malina, Mindy Sterling, Hank Greenspan. How did everyone become involved?
I consider him to be a mentor. I don't know if he knows that, but if he's watching this, he now knows. His name is John Levy, and he is the godfather, I think, of modern TV casting. He's won the Emmy for ER, for The West Wing, for Shameless. He discovered a whole host of actors that are A-list: George Clooney, Jessica Chastain. Anyway, gave them their first real big roles, and he cast my first film, Cavemen, and he. I sent him this script and he fell in love with it as well. And he said, let's make this movie. And so we started the process of attaching talent, and we didn't have any financing actually at the time. And it was just based on the strength of the script and him vetting it. He was able to help us get actors of, Josh Malina and Mindy Sterling, or Carlos Ponce's, or Rachelle Lefevre's, and Hank Greenspan's talent to come on board. So we feel blessed to have had him.
So I want to talk about the lead, Hank Greenspan, who plays Ethan. What was he like to work? Because he's already like such an impressive resume for such a young person. So what was he like, and what impressed you the most about his portrayal?
And I know Malina will want to talk to this. I just will say this about him: he is a brilliant actor, and he has the ability to take direction like no other kid I've ever seen. He can change it up on a dime if I need him to. And it was a joy directing him, It's most of a director's job, believe it or not most, but a large part of it is done if you cast your film properly. The last thing I want to do on set is have to actually direct a performance out of an actor. And that was never the case with this film. And Hank was key to everything. He was always the most prepared. He interacted beautifully with Josh and Mindy and, people who've had years and years of experience. Hank was right there with them, never missed a beat. And so, having someone, and I should also say that Caroline Valencia, who plays Camille, was of the same caliber. The two of them together have such amazing chemistry that it was a joy. Sometimes I just got to sit back and watch the magic happen.
Yeah. No, just to add on, as Herschel said, John Levy was an extraordinary partner. He's got incredible instincts, and he really helped guide us and connect us to really fantastic actors. And then, when we met Hank, I kind of knew it right away. He was exactly what I had in my mind. It was like awkward. He had that awkward adolescent, but he was super smart, and he could be very deep, and he was also funny. And on set, he's just complete professional and just a lovely person. He's got really good ethics, and he's just really an extraordinary actor. All the adult actors were blown away by him. They were always like, "Oh, we cannot believe that this kid is incredible," because it's not for an independent film. You need to have the acting on point because you don't have the leisure and the time to make things go longer than they need to, And so for him to show up, having he's in every single scene, and to have all of those lines memorized was, again, I was producing while we were in production, and from a producer's perspective, we couldn't have made the movie without him. It's really that simple. And Caroline is just charming and wonderful, and also a fantastic actress. And then of course, when you have all the professionals that we had and all the adult actors, it just made it fun.
I want to ask about them as well right now. Hank is actually going to come on this show later on this week. But so talk about like Josh Malina and Mindy Sterling, incredible cast that you have.
Yeah, Josh is amazing. He and I drove him to the set because he was staying near where I live, and he and I both went to Yale together. And he was old. He's older, just a little bit older, but he's just, there's just not enough good things to say about him. He's funny. He's charming. He's an incredible actor. He's easygoing. Sometimes he would have to wait around for me to drive him home because, and he didn't care. He wasn't somebody who and he cared about the project. He really cared about the story, and it was important. It's important for him to make things that are Jewish, that are meaningful. And I just really respect him. And I know that Herschel had a great time with him as a director-actor relationship.
Yeah, I would add on to that with, Josh was up for anything. I don't think he's had, he's always on big projects. And so I don't know how many indie films he's done, but with this particular indie film, we introduced him to a lot of things like guerrilla filmmaking. I don't think he'd done a lot of that. He was game for anything. And Mindy Sterling as well, Carlos Ponce, Rachelle Lefevre, all of them. It was important for me to enroll them in the idea of what it was we were trying to make and the story we were trying to tell. And they were gracious with their time, willing to, maybe there was a day or two they didn't have a trailer, or, you know what I mean? Like, so they were willing to sacrifice because everyone making the movie was sacrificing and believed in what it was we were doing. And that's just amazing stuff to have on set.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone sounds like they were pitching in, which is fantastic. One little thing before I get to I want to find out more about the independent show. Marlene, I read that your daughter played a role in early drafts. I just curious, did she start giving you feedback of voice as it went on?
Oh yeah, she absolutely did. I mean, I think we were on the phone last night, and I think she gave me one more comment last night. I was like, well, it's a little late now, but thanks. But she's always, from the beginning, she was just saying that, she would just be like, there were moments where she'd be like, I just don't think a kid that age would say it that way, but I think that they might say it this way. And she would help me with that. And I mean, I told her this last night. We were in one of the Q&As, and we had a 10-year-old who said, I loved when he said, she has Riz. Like, that made me laugh. And I feel like this movie should be shown in, like, every single Hebrew school. Like, I mean, it was the cutest thing, and it's like, that was important. Of course, I know that most of what we have Ethan saying is, it does have like an adult angle to it. And the idea there is, like, sometimes teens have these very deep, well, first of all, he's a precocious teen, period. Like, no question about it. He's not like your typical 13-year-old. But also, sometimes teenagers or adolescents have these very deep and complicated thoughts, and they don't necessarily have the ways to express it, but they're thinking it. Maybe they're writing it down, or maybe they're talking about it with a friend or whatever to themselves. And so, in a way, I was trying to give voice to that. Like, if I could have said what I actually felt when I was 13, or what I think Ethan could say, that's what he would say.
Just to add to you got my perspective. I have published books that my kids went through when they were younger, saying, "Oh, he shouldn't have said that," or "She shouldn't have said that." Yes, the books were already out. Yes, so you mentioned the trailers and things. So, what were some of the biggest challenges in shooting independently?
Weather was a big challenge for us. Not having $100 million was another big challenge for us. But weather, actually, anytime you make an indie film, that's the fun of making it. Ultimately, like, what is going to go wrong today? Because we did a lot of pre-pro, a lot of planning, and as a producer, that's always, whenever I'm producing, it's how do we mitigate, or how do we just cut down on the number of problems that we're going to have on the day? And no matter how hard we tried, we had things go wrong that you couldn't even imagine. We had trucks, PAs filling the diesel truck up with regular gas. We had, storms for 2 weeks. We had so many things happen. But what that does is it puts you into the position of having to think quickly on your feet. As a director, it makes you sort of, okay, well, this was our shot list. Let's figure out another way to do this. Or as a writer, let's rewrite this to accommodate what it is that's going on in front of us. It's raining. Well, the scene can't take place here on this deck. We obviously have to figure out another solution for that. So that's kind of the fun, of making an indie film. And in many ways, my favorite scenes are a direct result of us, having those obstacles that we have to overcome. Because I think it brings out the best, not just in us, but in all of our actors and our crew and everyone involved.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to think of all the romance of it in retrospect. In the moment, again, like, kind of being the producer on the ground while it was going on, it was extremely, extremely stressful. Because, like, the analogy that I always give is that it's like being given a tree, like one tree, and then someone telling you, like, go build a 10,000 square foot, beautiful house with that tree. And it's like that, like, it's problem solving like that, and Herschel and Darman, our cinematographer, were the craftsmen that could do it, but for me as the producer, and I think we did end up with very little, making something that looks incredible. Like, we did kind of make that house, but behind the scenes, it was, the neighbor who was angry about this, that you have to, like, talk to and be really nice to. It was like, when you're putting M&Ms on the cake, that particular day, they didn't have regular M&Ms. It was only red, white, and blue M&Ms because 4th of July was coming up. I mean, it was just insane things that you could never imagine. And the thing is on another, when you have time, you can do, but when you're working with kids, you only have a certain amount of hours. So there was this constant time pressure. So I love there's so much fun to it. And I love the surprises and the positive stuff that came out of it. But I just always want people who are independent filmmakers, I want them to know, I know how hard it is. If you made an independent film, you worked your butt off. We know that you did. It's not easy. And you really have to be committed to it. You have to be committed to it.
Well, you both had me until you said storms in South Florida. That sounded a little hard to believe. But how did Menemsha get involved?
We were introduced after we premiered at the Miami Film Festival. We were a gala film there. I think I said that. And we sold out the Olympia Theater, which was awesome. Word somehow got to Menemsha. I think it may have been through one of the publicists that was involved. I think it was through the publicist who was involved with the Miami Film Festival, who fell in love with the movie. And she made an introduction. We were getting a whole bunch of, distributors that were interested at the time, but we really liked Menemsha had just put out Bad Shabbos, which Mylin and I were both fans of. And they wanted to go theatrical with the film. And anytime a distributor says that they believe in it in a theatrical way, then we listen. So that's how it kind of transpired.
And Menemsha has a really interesting model that I think it's a smart model for people to look at, which is they engage communities. And of course they engage the Jewish community, but there are other communities that they engage, and they make events. They have actors do Q&As. And so by making events along with the movie and engaging different communities, what happens is, it's not just, people will ask sometimes like, oh, well, when is it going to be streaming or whatever? And, Herschel and I are really happy that it's having a theatrical release, not from like an ego perspective, but from a perspective of like, we believe this is a film that is meant to be shared with other people. Like, we believe that there's something really powerful about laughing and crying with someone. We believe it's important to talk about love transcending difference with people that are all different from you. We like the idea that like it might trigger some things in you for positive or negative, bring things up for you, and that then we can talk about it. And then afterwards we all sit and talk about it. Even if it's 15 minutes, people will be like, I love the movie, and I really loved talking about some of these things that we never get a chance to talk about. So Menemsha does a really good job of creating circumstances that we can do that kind of thing. So, and I love that. I think it's smart because people talk, and this movie is a word of mouth film, and we have seen that happening so far. And it's really fun to see people coming to the theater. Then, like we had a kid, one of the kids that came that was 10 years old went with his grandparents, and then the next day came with his mom. And then we had a mom who came with a friend, and then the next day came with her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. Like, people like watch it, and then they're like, no, but I have all these family members that I think will connect to this and that want to talk about this. And so that's very inspiring, and it makes Herschel and I really happy to see.
I've had on Neil Friedman from Menemsha, and I've had on several of the directors of movies that you've already mentioned, and everyone has, well, not Neil, of course, but the directors from the other movies have all talked about, praised Menemsha, the way that they work together with them. So, and speaking of, right, so the audience, you've had strong response I've seen in South Florida. I've seen the pictures on social media. So, sold out show, positive Q&As. What has surprised you the most about how viewers are connecting with the film?
For me, every Q&A, we have a number of people standing up, sharing their experience, their relationship to the film, and getting very emotional. Our Q&As are very emotional, actually. There's a lot of love in the room. And I feel like right now we're at this interesting point in time where the world is so crazy and out of whack, and everything we see is negative and cynical, and that it's refreshing to have a film like Ethan Bloom, which speaks to Jewish positivity. It speaks to not just Jewish positivity, but positivity across all religions, and just about the human experience. And it gives us hope. It brings people together, and I'm particularly proud of that. I think it's tough to make something that inspires people, and I hope people feel inspired and uplifted when they leave the audience or when they leave the film. It's been every Q&A I look forward to. They're just, I learned something new every time.
And to add to that, like, one of my biggest surprise has been like having grown men come up to me and like be like, I haven't cried like that in 20 years
Oh,
since my mom died. Oh my God. It's like, it's so moving, you know, or people saying like, you know, I think that it's just, again, we were trying to tell a sweet story that's funny, but it's interesting to see how much people are connecting to the different characters, like, and the different experiences for different reasons. It's kind of, it's very, yes, like Herschel said, it just does bring up a lot of love in the room, and that's really nice. Yeah.
Not that you would know, you can't question the audience, but I'm just curious, has it been predominantly Jewish audience, or have you seen a mix? Have people identified themselves as like, oh, I'm this, but I still wanted to see this movie?
So, shocking mix. I mean, we thought that it would connect more with Jewish audiences, and it has. But we like one of the people that came that's Christian brought their family that's Christian, and they, you know, came over and wanted to pray with us and bless us and bless the movie. Like, it's just, I think people are longing for films that have light, and whatever way that is, I think people connect to that. I mean, there's always going to be people, look, if you're super rigid and you only want to see one thing or one religion in one particular way, this probably isn't the movie for you, you know, because this is a movie that is celebrating difference, and it's celebrating Judaism, for sure, but it's also celebrating, you know, it's a positive priest, and it's, you know, celebrating Latino community and that kind of thing. So I think that, you know, I think that I would say 98% of people, if not 99% of people, are just like, my heart feels open, I feel connected, and that's big for us.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I'm personally drawn to the film is all the things you mentioned. I'm of Mexican Jewish descent, so it's got all the things, both those things in there.
Love that.
What's one scene or moment for both of you that from the film that you're both especially like proud of, or that just hit you looking at it there? I mean, you could each give me one different or one together, you know.
We both have the same two, I think, but let's see which one you go first, Herschel. You go first.
Well, I know what your favorite one is. See, it's hard for me to talk about my favorite film. I mean, my favorite scene without giving away a very important plot point. So I don't want to do that. But I will tell you one thing. I'll tell you my favorite, most unexpected shot, my favorite moment. There's a sequence which Maylen will talk about where Ethan and his best friend, who becomes sort of his romantic interest, Camille, played by Caroline Valencia, the two of them go to the school dance, and they share in this really magical night together. I won't get too far into it, but at the end of the night, there was a moment where Camille is supposed to say goodbye to Ethan, and we kept trying to get that scene throughout the making of the movie. All I needed was a shot with her doing it, and I couldn't find the time because we had so many obstacles, rain being the biggest. And we'd finished our day, but there were like 15, 20 minutes left, and it was raining out, but started to sprinkle. And I said to my cinematographer, you think we could just squeeze a shot out, you know, with her getting out of the car and turning around and saying goodbye to Ethan at the end of the night? And, you know, Darman Moore, who's an amazing cinematographer, was up for anything. And Hank, who plays Ethan, had already been wrapped for the night. So it was just Caroline. And I gave her the direction. We raced out there, no sound. And the shot that I had intended to shoot, I couldn't get because I didn't have any lights. So we just used what was there. And she does it so beautifully in that moment. And it was one take. And she turns around and she does this thing where she says goodbye in her own way that I could never even direct it. It was just so uniquely Camille and Caroline all in one. And it's literally, it was the hardest shot to get in the movie. But for me, it's just so rewarding to see that moment because it encapsulates who she is as a character. And those are the happy accidents and things that we discover when we're making movies. That's it for me.
The shot he's talking about, I absolutely love. Like, it really is. The colors are so beautiful. It's such a beautiful shot. And it's the end of my favorite scene / sequence of the movie, which is, you know, we've both seen the movie 10 bajillion times. and you know, sometimes like I can't watch the whole thing anymore because I've seen it so many times, but I will always go back to see the sequence. I will never, ever, ever, ever tire of the sequence. And it's this dance sequence, and it's just a very, again, not to give anything away, but it's just a very sweet moment with the two of them. I love the way that Herschel directed it, and it's exactly what I had in my mind when I was writing it. And there's just one particular moment where they're dancing together, and they're in the crowded, room, and then she kind of goes into slow motion, and it's just very sweet with the music and with the two of them, and with him kind of recognizing her, and them, having like, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm like a romantic, but I'm just a sucker for that first love, that first moment that you connect with someone in that way. And that's what the feeling, it's like a really good song, and it's just beautiful colors. It looks amazing. And then it ends with that, accident scene or shot that Herschel's talking about. That is just like, again, the colors are really beautiful. And, this is something that most people don't know, but I love because it's just sweet, which is that the dress that she's wearing is the dress that my niece wore to her bat mitzvah. Oh, nice. It's my niece's bat mitzvah dress. It's the dress that's in the movie.
I love that dress.
I do too. It's such a character. That dress is such a character. Great. Yeah, it's so great. So.
Well, now I know.
And that dress is my other favorite moment. I love that moment when Hank sees her. The reveal of the dress is just as magical. Mm-hmm. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where can people see Ethan Bloom?
Movies of Del Rey and Movies of Lake Worth right now. Come out. We're going to have a Q&A this weekend with Caroline Valencia. She's flying in, who plays Camille. Phenomenal actress, amazing at Q&As. And I think people will learn a lot about what it means to be a child actor working in Hollywood. She's on the show Only Murders in the Building. She plays the young Selena on that. And she's been on Wizards of Waverly Place. And I know she's up for a lot of big Disney movies right now, so we're fingers crossed for her. But she'll be there in person, and my Lynn will be there, and I'll be there, and then we'll be playing possibly the week after, and really this film, as we said before, it plays as long as people come out and see it and support it and tell their friends about it.
Yeah, for example, we were in Miami. And, of course, a lot of people went to see it in Miami. But then I just today, I ran into a friend, and she was like, I couldn't see it. I was traveling. But now she can't see it in Miami on the big screen. That's right now she can't. So it's important to know that, you have to think whenever something is in its theatrical release, you have no idea how long it's going to be there. Right. So do not wait. It's like Broadway. It's like you don't know if it's going to be there a week or 3. I mean, for us, it will never be 3 years. But you really don't know if it's going to be 1 week or 3 weeks. You don't. So the fact is if you want to see it in the theater, go if you have a theater near you. And then after Del Rey, will be in Winter Park Village in Orlando and in New Smyrna Beach. AMC New Smyrna Beach. Is that right, Herschel?
AMC New Smyrna.
Yeah. So we'll be there starting on April 17th. We'll be starting there. And then we'll be at the Villages. So if you have if anyone from the Villages, go see it. That'll be really great.
So you're going to be in Del Rey this Saturday and Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay.
But we're there all throughout the week. Always.
The Q&A will be on the weekends.
The Q&A is weekends. If you don't want to hear us because you hated us in this podcast, go see it during the week.
And on the week of the 17th is going to be in the Villages.
We'll be in the Villages, we'll be at the Regal Winter Park, and we'll be at the AMC New Smyrna, and we'll be continuing at Movies of Del Rey and Movies of Lake Worth.
Exactly.
And how can people follow you both on social media?
Well, follow us at Ethan Bloom
Movie. Ethan Bloom Movie.
Yeah, Ethan Bloom Movie. And then for me, it's Maylindo, Maylendo. And for Herschel, yours is?
It's at Herschel Faber.
At Herschel Faber, yeah.
HERSCH. Don't forget that C. HEL Faber, FABER.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming on. I look forward to seeing Ethan Bloom. I'm going to try to get out there this weekend.
Please do.
Oh, yay!
Yes. And,
bring your kids.
Yes. Well, they're older, but yes. But I want to thank you both for coming on. The movie looks great, and I definitely look forward to seeing it. And everyone go see Ethan Bloom. So let me sign this off here. Okay.
So nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, let me give 1 second. Okay, this has been The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. Again, a very special thanks to Herschel Faber, and Maylen Dominguez. Go see Ethan Bloom. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.